welcome to episode 2 of the I'm Sex Positive series. And before we begin, I just want to remind y'all that DC Being Award nominations are now open. Nominations opened on June 15th, so visit www.sexualbeing.org to nominate your friends, your family, or even yourself, because self-love, for fun categories like Biggest Mouth or So DC for the 2021 DC Being Awards. Nominations are open until July 13th. So let's get into this episode. On this episode of I'm Sex Positive, we are discussing dating and relationships during the pandemic. So, how have your relationships evolved? How are we handling dating? And what tips do you have for dating? So, for this episode, I brought a couple of my friends with me, and I would love for them to introduce themselves before we get into our conversation. So, Mariah, we're going to start with you. You just do names, pronouns, a little bit about yourself, like speak to any pieces of your identity, your typical relationship structure, and your current relationship status. So, Mariah.
Hello, everyone. I am Mariah Morrison. My pronouns are she, her. I am a content creator, social media marketing manager, graphic designer. Um, my current relationship structure is single and actively dating, and I typically look for more monogamous or I guess I don't even know if a good way to explain this. Like sometimes you just want to date people, but you're not like committed. I don't know what's a good way to explain that, but just I guess dating.
Mm-hmm.
So I typically look for those structures. Yeah.
Thanks, Mariah. We're going to get more into your business, but Tay, introduce yourself.
Yeah.
All right, hey y'all. My name's Tay Bryant. My pronouns are they, them. I identify as non-binary and as a lesbian. I'm a DC organizer. I work in reproductive health and rights in DC, and I'm also an MA candidate at George Mason University studying women and gender studies. I am ethically non-monogamous, and I am actively dating.
Okay. Thank you both for sharing. And it wouldn't be right if, I had y'all put y'all business out there and I didn't put my business out there. So Nichelle, she, her, working in philanthropy full time, supporting Black and Brown LGBTQ movement organizers. I am currently in a polyamorous relationship. So I have a partner, my girlfriend, and we are long distance, non-monogamous, and we'll get into this later. I was also dating someone else at the same time. And so I guess as far as like my current partnership status, that is it. And I always tell myself that and I always tell other people, I'm always dating, but I'm not always in a relationship, though I am right now. And so thank you, Mariah and Tay, for priming us for this conversation. And so, I have a couple of questions that guide us, and I really just want this to be a conversation just around your dating experience and your relationships, how they've grown, expanded, changed during this pandemic. So, Tay, we can start with you. What has your dating experience been like during the pandemic?
I think I'm grateful enough to say that the pandemic hasn't really stopped or halted my dating. I think it tweaked it a little bit. I had to make some adjustments in terms of of course, being safe, in terms of being tested. In the beginning of the pandemic where vaccines weren't available, but just being open and honest in terms of communication. When people are linking, asking, have you been tested? What is this? What is this? I also think in the beginning of the pandemic, I was just hooking up for real. I think I've been on a healing journey for the past year, for sure. The pandemic definitely set me down and had me be reflective of myself and do a lot of shadow work and inner child work. So it shifted where I realized that I started to heal. And I realized that I wanted more than to just hook up. And that's where I kind of started exploring ethical non-monogamy, because
Mm.
I'm pretty sure I was just hooking up and dating people, but I think there's a difference between dating people ethically and just like doing anything or saying anything and being out here just doing anything, treating people any old kind of way, disguised as non-monogamy. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. Hope that answered your question.
Oh, that did answer my question. Okay. A lot for me to, I got a lot. I got lots of follow up. Okay, Mariah, what has your dating experience been like?
So for me, dating during the pandemic has been interesting. So I have done a lot of like online dating, like different
Mm.
apps and stuff. And so that was interesting to say the least. I met up with a few people, going on some really cool dates. And then for a large portion of the pandemic, I was in like a sticky situation. um, and so yeah. And so I was doing that for like, I don't know, 7, 8 months of pandemic. And so I kind of recently just started back like trying to date more and like, get to know more people. But yeah, so it's mostly been online and I spent that time in like that situationship and then now just trying to be open. But for me, a lot of my time during the pandemic was really just spent chilling and like, definitely I work a lot, so working a lot of hours, but just spending time with my dog and just honestly with myself,
Mm.
outside of, that situationship. So it's been interesting if I could sum it up in just one word.
Mm. Oh my God. I think y'all like both talked around just like working on yourself during this pandemic, because I know that's something that I definitely worked on. And I think what's wild is that like as I was working on myself, I found myself getting into 2 relationships during the pandemic. Um, and one of them being long distance, with my girlfriend, who I am still currently with. We're going on a year, so shout out to her. Which is like wild to think that I got into relationships in a pandemic. But I always tell people that like I feel like that was the best time, because the pandemic like really exposed everything. And I think Tay, like when you're talking about like healing journeys, like this pandemic like really had me really raw out here and really bare, like essentially like spiritually and emotionally. Um, so I know a lot of people, there's like a lot of like, if you got into a relationship in a pandemic, like it won't last, or you're gonna like really see like how horrible your partner is. And I also just think it was just like a time for everyone, like a lot of revealing and shedding. And so y'all both talked around like this thing of safety. So how did y'all like manage and mitigate safety during this time? I guess we're still in it. So during this time of the pandemic, so Mariah, like how are you thinking around like safety?
So for me, a big thing was okay, I didn't meet up with a lot of people to start off
Mhm.
with. But what I did do was, of course, try to do things like video chats, video calls, to talk to people on the phone, of course. And then, for a large part of the pandemic, we couldn't really go anywhere, period. So like going out to the restaurants, all that stuff was really not a thing. It was really a dub. You couldn't do none of that. And then as things kind of opened up a little bit, I tried to, practice safety, wear a mask, social distance, but also, of course, try to do some tracing and ask them, have you been around certain people? XYZ, have you had COVID tests and things like that? Because I was getting COVID tests kind of frequently because of work. And then besides, I was really kind of staying at home.
Mm.
And so just, keeping up with that and being mindful, washing your hands, hand sanitizer, and all of those things. And then once we got to the point to be able to be vaccinated, as soon as it was available to me, I got my vaccine. And so I've been feeling a little bit better about going out, but I still like to wear a mask and, of course, carry my hand sanitizer and all those other things. So I guess it's all about being smart and intentional because, your actions could affect somebody else. And so that's why
Mm.
dating during the pandemic has been a little bit challenging because you don't know who they live with or where they're going home with, or if someone in their household has like a pre-existing condition.
Mm-hmm.
And so just trying to be mindful of that stuff too. But yeah, I didn't invite too many people over. Like I told you, I was in like that situationship, but that was really one of the few people, or one of the only people that came and like actually spent time at my house frequently.
Mm,
So
yeah.
I try to be cognizant.
Yes. Tay, same question.
I think Mariah described it perfectly. I definitely will echo everything that you said. Just like being intentional, like you said, having open and honest communication about people's statuses or if they've gotten tested for it. I think when in the beginning of the pandemic, where I was actively trying to date people, I also would like get Airbnbs, I think, instead of
Mm,
having folks like be in one another's homes or maybe like exposing people that they live with. So it's like spending intentional time like that. And before spending the intentional time, making sure all the I's are dotted, T's are crossed,
yeah.
that. So yeah, Mariah explained it perfectly though, I think.
Yeah. Mariah, I think you did wonderful. Quick story time. I was sleeping with someone at the very beginning of the pandemic. And then I got on Instagram, y'all. Why was this person at a block party? I didn't even know they was having block parties. No mask, just like everybody just breathing on each other. I was just like, it is June. It is like we literally just came out of like the horridness that was like March through May, and this is how you're acting. And I'm like, I had this person in my home. Safe to say that me and that person do not talk because I think everything you mentioned, just like how other folks are living and just like the risks that you take, and you just want folks who are like aware of that safety during this time. So thank you for like laying that out so clearly. And so just like what did this past year reveal to you about relationships? And Tay, I'll start with you because I always start with Mariah. So Tay, what did the past year reveal to you about relationships?
Ooh, well, like I said, the more that I heal and the more that I like tap into my like shadow self and like my inner child self, I think the more successful my relationships get. Because I think I'm learning just a lot about like communication and like moving toward conflict and not away from conflict.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Honoring my boundaries. I think the more that I heal, the more that I honor myself, and the more that I center myself, the relationships just get better and better. Because it's like I'm attracting what I'm exuding. So yeah, so many things. I have a list. I'm like, I don't want to rush anything. Like I want to try to be as present as possible. I also think that over time I realized that I hold certain values. And I think that it is really important for people that I'm dating to kind of have foundations in those values. I think I realized that having similar shared values that are reciprocated is like really important to me. And I didn't know it for a little while, but I think like the more that I like take time for myself and honor myself and like I said, my boundaries and stuff, I realized that that was like very important to me. And so kind of just not anymore being unintentional about the people that I'm dating just because they fine or just because they whatever, like, but actually like, are we in alignment? So that's like the biggest thing.
Oh my God, the way I wanted to scream, but I was like, my mic was not muted. Like, but yes, all of that, yes. Mariah, same question. Like, what did this past year reveal to you? Especially like, you being in a situationship for like the majority of it. Like, what did that reveal to you?
So I like before this year had been, spending a lot of time, especially like in therapy and group therapy, working on vulnerability and communication. Because, everybody, I feel like has been conditioned to see vulnerability as kind of like a weakness, which I think is more of a strength. It takes a lot to be able to be vulnerable and to open yourself up. And so I feel like what I've learned is I continue to, journey down that path of vulnerability. And even through the situationship, a lot of people may have like negative experiences. I'm not saying everything was perfect and everything was amazing all the time. But what it did kind of teach me, or I guess it reaffirmed or reinforced that I am somebody who is worthy of love and can be giving of love and support and
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. And so I think that even though we don't really talk much anymore, it was really a great experience for me to kind of learn about myself. And because before I wasn't never really in anything like long term or, things like that. So I learned a lot about communication and just trying to navigate adults, I guess, relationship situationships, because it's kind of different from college because now you have like the layer of you have your job and you have your responsibilities. And so
Mm-hmm.
I saw like how my job could impact a relationship in the ways that I navigated things in my workspace and how, working from home kind of is spilled over into that. And so I just learned, I guess, a lot about myself and a lot about what I do want out of relationships. Like Tay said, you kind of learn, I think, through dating what you do like and what you don't like and what you need. And so that was like one of the biggest takeaways that I took from my situationship. And then following that, just taking some time to spend with myself and like really try to focus on like honing in on my mental health and thinking about what I want to do next in my life and my career and all those things. I did kind of put a pause on dating for like a month or two, like just to, heal, get myself together, allow myself to sit in those feelings. And so it also helped me be a little bit kinder to myself for being human because, we all be mad at ourselves. Like, why you sit over here crying over somebody? That's so pathetic. But it's
Mm-hmm.
human and it's normal. So allowing yourself to feel those things and just show yourself a little bit of kindness because I can be my worst critic. And so I feel like I just learned a lot about how to treat myself and how I would like to be treated, and then how I also would need to treat others. So I'm feeling
Mm-hmm.
pretty optimistic for the future, not worried about doing anything too serious, just really like Tay's been saying, like working on yourself, learning how to tap into like your inner child and bring that person back and like, restore a little bit of innocence that the world kind of took away from you. And so,
Mm-hmm.
just really focusing on those things.
Oh my God, y'all, the way y'all preaching on this call. um,
That's so beautiful.
so beautiful. Oh my God. And I think y'all like bring up like so many points. And I love that like the connecting thread for the three of us is like therapy and like inner child work and this healing. Because I think this was like the perfect time to do it. And I also think like for me personally in therapy, like one of my goals for my birthday last year was like work on my relationship with my father. And my father has been dead for almost 19 years at this point, but it's just like so much trauma from like when I was a child. I saw it like showing up and how like I dated. So like feeling like I had to like now like be an adult as like a child because like now my mom was a single parent, right? And so now I saw how that showed up in relationships where I'm just like so giving and so like kind of like, like the mom. I feel like everyone's been in a relationship with someone who's like a mom. And I'm very much the mom person in a relationship. And I can really like give and give and give. And this is not even only in my romantic relationships. This is like friendships, my relationships with my like own like with my own mother. I'm just like giving and giving and giving. And not necessarily always being replenished. So I think with just in this past year of like doing that inner child work, and basically like loving up on that child and saying like, oh, you didn't have the opportunity to be a child because like I basically created this thing in my mind, and whether it was reinforced or not by like my parent, like by my mom unintentionally, that like, okay, like we're gonna love up on you. You deserve to be like young and carefree. So how can I embody that now as a almost 20 years later? Like how can I really like truly embody that? And I think this past year I was really like, I just want relationships that are like freeing and easeful. Like I don't want anything that's like hard. And I also don't want anything that isn't joyous. And one of my favorite things is to tell people is like, if it's hard in the beginning, when it's supposed to be like easy and fun and like y'all really just getting to know each other, like I always think about like, what is that going to mean for down the road? So I think like therapy. Shout out therapy. Shout out therapy.
Therapy.
Shout out therapy. Shout out therapy.
Yes.
Because I've done so much work just like in this past year, and it's shown so much around like relationships. And so I kind of like, I think to like even go deeper, what did y'all learn about like romantic love and relationships like during this pandemic, and like do you see it differently, and like what are you wishing for yourself in the romantic realm? Taylor.
Yeah, I'm like, I can totally go because I just want to echo and like continue on from everything that you just said. I recently talked to my therapist about a person that I'm dating because I told the person that I love them. And I was like, like so terrified because I actually mean it.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a big deal. And so when I described to my therapist, like why I know that I love this person, I was like, because the relationship is easy, just like you said. It's grounding. I feel secure. Like I feel super secure, and we just be laughing like shit. Like we have like really similar, and we just be dying laughing. And my therapist noticed that the descriptors are in like direct opposition of the ways that I've described familial dynamics growing up, and just the ways that like my family showed up for me when I was a child. So like my inner child like loves a relationship because I can just show up as my like authentic and full self. And I can just be free, like fun. It's just super, super, super nice. So your question was about, I'm sorry, can you repeat it?
Yeah, just like what you learn about romantic love.
Okay.
And what are you looking forward to as far as like the romance arena of life?
I think that I am still learning because I don't think that I knew, but I'm kind of just like being open and like kind of going with the flow, trying to move towards it and not like run away from it. I talk a lot about the conversations that I have with the person that I'm dating are always so like open and honest, and we talk a lot about like sabotage because I think that she's scared too. We talk about like we don't think that we've actually ever felt how we feel about one another with other people. So we're kind of just like taking it day by day and are just like really open about all the things that we feel instead of like running away from it and then like having it turn out poorly. Like we move into one another instead of like moving away. So it's just like, it's just good. Yeah.
Oh my God, yes. I love this. Oh my God. Y'all know I'm a Cancer. I might start crying on this call. Mariah, you go. Same question. What'd you learn about romantic, love and relationships during this pandemic? And what do you see like for the future as far as the romantic arena of your life?
So I would have to go back to what y'all said about wanting something that's easy, that you can show up and just be yourself and like carefree. That kind of answers the question a little bit because, like one of the things that I really did appreciate about like that situationship that I was in was that it just happened so organically. Like everything was so easy. Sorry, my dog is like, what? Can you go do that somewhere else? So I liked how everything was so easy and it just evolved so organically. Like we were honest with each other. We could talk about a bunch of different things. We support each other. Like I really liked that. And so that's what I feel like I'm looking forward to as I continue upon my romantic journey is looking for things. Like I know relationships won't be perfect and they won't always be easy, but looking for things that feel, good, that you can kind of like escape. Cause like, if you have like a super hectic job, there's all these things going on in your life, but you can spend time with this person and y'all can show up for each other in the way that you need. I think that that is very powerful and it makes you feel really good inside, honestly, to like have someone and not just a person to be like codependent and just like dump on or like I need you to make me feel better, but like, something healthy and reciprocal. So that's what I kind of learned about romantic relationships is that romance is something that you have to constantly work at and it means different things for different people. Everybody has a different love language and the way that they need to be loved and appreciated. And so that's something to be mindful of. You can't expect someone to understand that at first, or you can expect someone to want to be loved in the way that you feel like their love language should be. So I think that was a really big thing for me, of course. And yeah, I feel, what I'm looking forward to is just continuing to get to know people and not feel pessimistic about relationships, just because you've had some failed ones in the past. I know a lot of people are like, I don't want to date no more men or women or whoever you date is trash and da 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 da. And I just don't want to, think that way. Like, I also learned, a lot of red flags and things that you can look for to kind of, set your boundaries and like nip stuff in the bud before it even continues to get to a point where it could be detrimental to you and your mental health. So that's the stuff like I've learned about romantic relationships. And then lastly, it's just like we said before, the pandemic kind of forced you to like sit with yourself and get to like, know yourself and enjoy and like get to a point where you can spend time alone and you don't always have to be surrounded by people. So I think that that was also important for me to learn about romantic relationships is that the person, like I said, doesn't need to be your end all be all. You have to be able and comfortable with being with yourself. So I know that was kind of like all over the place, but I feel like that's kind of what I learned about romantic relationships and then also what I'm like looking forward to. It's just happiness and more fun, easy encounters.
Oh my God, it was not all over Mariah. Like I was here, and I know Tay was. We were both here. We were here. I think both of y'all, like everything y'all said, like plus one, all of that. And I also think for me, two things. So I'm just gonna speak on the second relationship that I entered during the pandemic that I'm no longer in. I still have so much love for this person. I still love this person. Um, and I just realized that sometimes like love is not enough. I always tell people that like I am a true believer and love does not conquer all. There are other things that I want in a relationship, and I had needs that weren't being met. And at some point, it was just like, how long do I deal with having the unmet need? Like, is it like a temporary thing, or does this person have things that like they need to work on? And I came to the conclusion that this person had things that they needed to work on outside of me, and that would prevent them from like truly showing up for me in the ways that I needed. So, like in that same vein, I realized that like I need a lot of care, and I am not afraid to say like I need a lot of care. Um, and like as someone who has always been the caregiver, it really took this pandemic for me to like truly understand that like I also need a lot of care. Like I can show up for people and I do not mind showing up for people, but I need it to be reciprocal. So when it comes to care, I'm just like, I need you to pour into me like I'm pouring into you. And like I said, that like second relationship didn't work out, but I still like love this person and I have like talked to them around these things. In the ways that like it hurt me, how I wish they could show up for me. So like I don't like, I don't count them out. I wish them the best. I know that they can do those things, but we just won't be doing those things while they're in a relationship with me. And then the second thing is that I don't want to reserve romance just for my like partners. I want romance to be in every facet of my life. So like I want to romance like my besties and my friends and folks I'm in community with, because like I don't want to reserve that like deep love just for a partner. And I always tell people that I'm always trying to like decenter romantic relationships, and that doesn't mean that I do not want to be in a romantic partnership. That just means that I want to spread the romance around. I am very much a person where I'm like, I kiss and I hug up all my friends, and I'm just like, why should that, I don't have sex with my friends, but I do kiss and hug up on my friends. So it's just like, why can't I like give that kind of love to them too? So romance is currently under investigation, as one of my good friends Will would say. Romance is under investigation right now. I am always like thinking of the ways of like, how can I give more romance in other areas of my life? In the future, I think we kind of all want the same thing. I want joyous, deep, grounding love, like a love that makes you feel free, um, a love that like is easeful, a love that is joyous because I believe happiness is fleeting, but joy is forever. Um, and yeah, I'm gonna stop because I could start crying about this because I just love y'all so much. I can talk about love like all day long. We don't have that kind of time though. And so I know we've talked a lot around like romantic relationships. So like the thing that I want to close on is like self-love. And I know like both of y'all, I think therapy is a form of self-love, but like what did you learn about self-love and loving on yourself during this Panasonic, y'all? So Mariah, we can start with you.
So for me, self-love has always been hard because first of all, Leos, I am a Leo. We can be very self-deprecating. That's like one of our things. But also as a person who does live with and experience depression, it can be really hard to love on yourself and show up for yourself, even with some of the most basic things like getting up and washing your face and brushing your teeth and shower and cleaning up your space. So whenever I am going through depressive periods, sometimes I'm not that good at self-love. But one thing that I have learn to like embrace, like, of course, talking about it in therapy, meeting with my therapist at least like once every week or like once every 2 weeks. I think that's been like a really big thing for me, and just having someone to talk to, and not just like, everybody think therapy is just all about talking, but it's also about learning how to unpack your behavior and learn positive ways to cope and manage the things that you're going through, especially in relation to mental illness. So it doesn't go away. You just have to learn how
Mm,
to deal with it better in your life in a way that's healthy for you. And so that's been a big thing for me and just like my self love journey. I journal a lot. So if I feel like I need to get it off my chest, or like, whenever it was fresh when my situationship ended and I want to call them at 2 a.m. and leave that voicemail and end up on somebody's mixtape or something, just writing in the journal app. Sometimes the calls did go through, but for the most part, just journaling and like really, it's a place where you can be open and talk about things. And like, I really love journaling, so I do that a lot. And then I've also been embracing skincare, because my favorite thing to kind of deal with my depression is skincare. Because I'm like, okay, well, I'm trying this new product. Content creation is fun for me, so it gives me something to do that's like more constructive than like laying in bed and just like watching TV or just doing something mindless. But also with skincare, it's like, okay, I get up, I'm going to take a shower, I'm going to do my skincare routine, I'm going to do a face mask. And it's fun and it's therapeutic. You can massage your face and your temples and stuff like that. And so I've been using skincare as a way to kind of, you know, deal with like, of course, my depression, but also on my journey to self love, and just finding a way to have a healthy relationship with my appearance, because skin is never going to be perfect. You'll always have breakouts and texture and all those things. So it's more so, I kind of feel like it's like a correlation. Life is going to be rough at times and bumpy and uneven and sometimes dull, but just get having a healthy mindset about it is super important to me. And it's like same with my skin. It's not going to be perfect, but I can get healthy skin and not perfect skin. And so that's kind of what I'm looking for in life as well. Just a healthy life, continue working on mental health, continue on my self love journey, and being able to sit with and work through those rough patches, just like putting on like a serum or something, work through those rough patches. Some skincare products don't work right away. Some things you learn in therapy don't work just automatically. It takes time.
yes.
Like sunscreen, putting that on, working on my boundaries and my protective barrier and all those things. So I could go on and on about how my skincare journey is a metaphor for like my whole life. But yeah,
Yes.
so that's what I've been really thinking about with self love. And I've had more time to experiment because I'm at home too. So the pandemic has definitely helped with that. Like I said, I've been having to sit with myself. So I've been kind of appreciative of the time that the pandemic has given to us. I know that it has been challenging and it has been horrific for so many people, and I would be remiss to say that. But I do feel like one thing I appreciate about the pandemic is that we have been given a little bit of time to just take a pause, which we weren't really afforded to do so before. So,
Yeah, I love that metaphor. That skincare, self-love metaphor. I'm gonna take that. I'm gonna credit you, but I'm gonna take it. Say, same question. What did you learn about self-love during this pandemic?
Just like Mariah said, I think self-love is hard, especially in a world where Black, queer, trans, non-binary folks are not honored. Frankly, in a world where everybody want to see us dead, it's really hard to love yourself when like all odds are really against you. But I think that during the pandemic, I've had the opportunity to reconnect with my ancestors. I started setting up an ancestral altar and sitting at my ancestral altar, venerating my people. And I think that alone has transformed my love for myself, because I'm like, these are my people. And it's like, when I venerate my people, it's like, I remember who I am, kind of, because it's like, I may have been lost in the past, or things may have been stripped from me, but it's kind of like I can reclaim who I am. And like, I know that I got hella people behind me that I'm made up of, that I just really look to. So definitely shout out to ancestral veneration, and honoring my people. And then I also think that coupled with therapy, has just been super like transformative for me. I feel like I'm a different person. I swear I'm a different person. And I know that healing is not linear. Healing happens in cycles and in spirals. So I might be feeling this one way at this one point in time, and then I may maybe like fall off or something. But every time I come back, I'm on a new foundation, I think. And I just like kind of continue to ascend towards me. So shout out to ancestral. I keep saying it because I think all Black people need to have an ancestral altar. And yeah, that's really how I've kind of gotten back, kind of just reclaiming everything that I know has been stolen from me and my people, knowing that I'm deserving and worthy of everything. And so is everybody else, everybody, Black and brown, queer, trans folks. Like, y'all deserve the world. We do.
Yes. Oh my, like, what can I even say after y'all? Because I think summed up so beautifully that like self-love is hard. And I think just over the past year, like Tay, speaking to what you said, like I think being inundated with like images of like Black folks being murdered. Like, let's talk about it. Black trans folks being murdered, Black queer folks being murdered, just like seeing that and being inundated. First of all, Black women Black folks being murdered, being inundated with that was not the best for my own self-love journey. But I think the work that I've done through therapy, I got an altar in the past year because of this pandemic. And I was really just like, I need to like speak to my ancestors. I'm going to go to therapy. And I also need to sit with the fact that like, I have people watching me like in the spiritual plane, but I also have people watching me right now in like the physical. Like there are people I'm in community with who want to see me do well and like be my best self. And I want that for me because like I am deserving of it. I am worthy of it. And so knowing all of this has really helped the self-love journey. Of course, it is never perfect. Mariah, like you said, is not always perfect. But, I think the pandemic has like really given me the tools, and in a way it's given me like beyond the tools, it's given me like, oh my God, I'm trying to think of the word. It's given me the means of like, I deserve all these things because like I'm me, and I deserve these things because like look at what like my body did and my mind did to survive this pandemic. Like I deserve all these things just for surviving. So, yeah, I got one last question just to close, and you could think on it. But this has been like so amazing. I love talking with y'all. I could talk to y'all for like hours. And I'll just tell y'all the question so I can think about it. What is the one? What's the one? The one lesson you want to share with viewers about dating, being in a relationship during this time? I can start this time because I already had the question, so I already know what you're gonna say. But um, I think the one lesson is to be vulnerable and be vulnerable even when it's scary. Because being vulnerable, Mariah, I think you brought up a great point in the beginning. Like, it's not something that we're taught to see as like strong. So I think being vulnerable for me personally is very scary. Um, and I think being vulnerable this past year was like, okay, like, yes, I could be in this relationship, and like, yes, I'm scared I'm going to sabotage this, but like, I can do it. And like, yes, I love you, but I cannot be in a relationship with you. And I think all of that takes vulnerability. And all those situations were scary. I think getting in a relationship was scary. I think getting out of a relationship was scary, but it all took vulnerability. And I always am just like reminding myself to just like be vulnerable and like stand in my own truth, even if like it's scary, my voice shakes. I don't know if I'm ready for it, but I know I'm feeling it. Just like be vulnerable. So that is my one lesson. Either one of y'all could go if you have it.
I think I have mine. So I agree with the vulnerability piece. I was going to say something to that, but another thing I would say is don't be afraid to speak up and let people know what you need and ask for it. I know a lot of times you may feel scared or even like, just like some internalized toxicity, like, oh, if I be honest, let this person know I need XYZ, then it may not go well, or the relationship or whatever it may end. But if it does end, it just means they weren't the person that, was meant for you if they're not willing to, like I said, love you how you need to be loved, or appreciate you, or listen and be willing to work through like any of the issues you may face. So I say never be afraid to like let people
Mhm.
know what you need from them
Mm,
and how they can best support you. But just of course it would be reciprocal. They, will also, expect the same thing from you. But just don't be afraid to let people know what you need or speak up, or just be honest about things that, you're going through. Like if someone is doing something, or, you're experiencing like rocky period in your relationship, like just be willing to speak up and like navigate those issues. Like you said, it takes vulnerability, but it's also something that's difficult for us because you like having those hard conversations will never be easy, but it helps you kind of work on that muscle of being able to like speak up, have difficult conversations. And I think that really spills over to anywhere in life, but relationships is a good place to practice it because it's like where you're most vulnerable. So
mm,
yeah, just don't be afraid to have those hard conversations and let people know what you need.
mm,
Shout out to opening up that throat chakra.
mm,
Yes, yes, yes. I think that's something that I've struggled with. Echoing everything that both of you all have just said, not being afraid to ask for what I need. So that's my advice. Don't be afraid to ask for what you need. Don't be afraid to have open, honest, transparent communication. Um, don't be afraid to honor your boundaries. Um, yeah, I think all of those are like super important. And I think I also have learned, I've tried to tell myself,
mm,
um, don't be afraid to receive love. Like, don't run away from receiving love. I think that I have had a hard time accepting love just because maybe I didn't know what it looked like, or I didn't feel like I was worthy or deserving. So I think healing has definitely helped with that. Um, but yeah, don't just try to be as unafraid as possible.
oh man. Yeah, this this was life giving. This was what I needed to go about my day. Thank you both so much. I am deeply appreciative, like beyond words, like the appreciation I can even give on this call. Like I'm so thankful. Y'all are both so wise. Um, y'all both have made me tear up a lot on this call. I am just like so thankful that I got to like that y'all both were here like for this conversation. Um, so thanks y'all. And thanks everyone who's watching. You know, share your dating tips, how you're navigating relationships and dating during this pandemic. Comment below, share the video. If anything stuck out to you, like please elevate it. If it resonates, say it. And just to plug again, the DC Awards, you can submit nominations at www.sexualbeing.org, and nominations close July 13th. Also, speaking of safety, like we did at the beginning of this video, DCBeings launched an amazing video highlighting status neutral in DC's history with HIV, which you can check out now on YouTube. And be sure to follow DCBeings on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at DCBeings. Thanks, y'all. Bye.
Bye.